Hi everyone, it's Bryn, your Miss Racing 2017, and we are continuing with Because of Winn, Dixie in honor of National Reading Month, and we are picking up with Chapter 3. If you're just joining us, there's Chapter 1 and 2, all in one video that you can find on my YouTube channel. Chapter 3. I started in on Winn Dixie right away, trying to clean him up. First, I gave him a bath. I used the garden hose and some baby shampoo. He stood still for it, but I could tell he didn't like it. He looked insulted the whole time. He didn't show me his teeth or wag his tail once. After he was all washed and dried, I brushed him good. I used my own hairbrush and worked real hard at all the knots and patches of fur stuck together. He didn't mind being brushed. He wiggled his back, but it felt pretty good. The whole time I was working on him, I was talking to him, and he listened. I told him how we were alike. See, I said, you don't have a family, and neither do I. I've got the preacher, of course, but I don't have a mama. I have one, but I don't know where she is. She left me when I was 3 years old. I can't hardly remember her. And I bet you don't remember your mama much, so it's almost like we're orphans. Winn Dixie looked straight at me when I said that to him, like he was feeling relieved to finally have someone understand his situation. I nodded my head at him and went on talking. I don't even have any friends, because I had to leave them all behind when we moved here from Whately up in North Florida. Have you ever been to North Florida? When Dixie looked down at the ground, like he was trying to remember if he had. You know what? I said. Ever since we moved here, I've been thinking about my mama extra hard, more than I ever did when I was in Whately. Winn Dixie twitched his ears and raised his eyebrows. I think the preacher thinks about my mama all the time, too. He's still in love with her. I know that because I heard the ladies at the church in Whately talking about him. They said, he's still hoping she'll come back, but he doesn't tell me that. He won't talk to me about her at all. I want to know more about her, but I'm afraid to ask the preacher. I'm afraid he'll get mad at me. When Dixie looked at me hard, like he was trying to say something. What? I said. He stared at me. You think I should make the preacher tell me about her? When Dixie looked at me so hard he sneezed. I'll think about it, I said. When I was done working on him, Winn Dixie looked a whole lot better. He still had his little bald spots, but the fur that he did had cleaned up nice, and it was all shiny and soft. You could still see its ribs, but I intended to feed him good, and that would take care of that. I couldn't do anything about his crooked yellow teeth because he got into a sneezing fit every time I tried to brush them with my toothbrush, and I finally gave up. But for the most part, he looked a whole lot better, and so I took him into the trailer and showed him to the preacher. Daddy, I said. He said. He was working on a sermon and kind of muttering to himself. Daddy, I wanted you to show you the new Winn Dixie. The preacher put down his pencil and rubbed his nose, and finally he looked up. Well, he said, smiling real big at Winn Dixie. Well, now, don't you look handsome? Winn Dixie smiled back at the preacher. He went over and put his head on the preacher's lap. He smells nice, too, said the preacher. He rubbed Winn Dixie's head and looked into her eyes. Daddy, I said real quick before I lost all the nerve. I've been talking to Winn Dixie. Is that right? The preacher said. He scratched Winn Dixie's head. I've been talking to him, and he agreed with me that since I'm 10 years old, you should tell me 10 things about my mama. Just 10 things, that's all. The preacher stopped rubbing Winn Dixie's head and held real still. I could see him thinking about pulling his head back into his shell. One thing for each year that I have been alive. I told him. Please? Winn Dixie looked up at the preacher and kind of gave him a nudge with his nose. The preacher sighed. He said to Winn Dixie, I should have guessed you were going to be trouble. He looked down at me. Come on, Opal, he said. Sit down, and I will tell you 10 things about your mama. Chapter 4. 1, said the preacher. We were still sitting on the couch, and Winn Dixie was sitting between us. Winn Dixie had already decided that he liked the couch a lot. 1, the preacher said again. Winn Dixie looked at him kind of hard. Your mama was funny. She could make just about anybody laugh. 2, he said. She had red hair and freckles, just like me? I said. Just like you. The preacher nodded. 3, she liked to plant things. She had a talent for it. She could stick a tire in the ground and grow a car. Winn Dixie started chewing on his paw, and I tapped him on the head to make him stop. 4, said the preacher. She could run really fast. If you were racing her, you couldn't even let her get a head start, because she would beat you for sure. I'm that way too, I said. Back at home in Watley, I raced Liam Fullerton and beat him, and he said it wasn't fair because boys and girls couldn't race each other to begin with. I told him he was just a sore loser. The preacher nodded. He was quiet for a minute. I'm ready for number 5, I told him. 5, he said. She couldn't cook. She burned everything, including water. She had a hard time opening a can of beans. She couldn't make head nor tail of a piece of meat. 6. The preacher rubbed his nose and looked up at the ceiling. When Dixie looked up too. Number 6 is that your mama loved a story. She would sit and listen to stories all day long. She loved to be told a story. She especially liked the funny ones. Stories that made her laugh. The preacher nodded his head, like he was agreeing with himself. What's number 7, I asked. Let's see. She knew all the constellations, every planet in the nighttime sky, every last one of them. She could name them and point them out, and she never got tired of looking up at them. Number 8, said the preacher, with his eyes closed, was that she hated being a preacher's wife. She said she just couldn't stand having the ladies at church judge what she was wearing and what she was cooking and how she was singing. She said it made her feel like she was a bug under a microscope. When Dixie lay down on the couch and put his nose on the preacher's lap and his tail on mine. 10, said the preacher. 9, I told him. 9, said the preacher. She drank. She drank beer and whiskey and wine. Sometimes she couldn't stop drinking. And that made me and your mama fight quite a bit. Number 10, he said, with a long sigh. Number 10 is that your mama loved you. She loved you very much. But she left me, I told him. She left us, said the preacher softly. I could see him pulling his old turtle head back into his stupid turtle shell. She packed her bags and left us. She didn't leave one thing behind. Okay, I said. Got up off the couch. When Dixie hopped off too. Thank you for telling me, I said. I went back into my room and wrote down all 10 things that the preacher had told me. I wrote them down just the way he had said them to me, so that I wouldn't forget them. And then I read them out loud to Winn Dixie until I had them memorized. I wanted to know those 10 things inside and out. That way, if my mama ever came back, I could recognize her, and I'd be able to grab her and hold onto her tight and not let her get away from me again. And that is our conclusion of chapters 3 and 4. And stay tuned for chapter 5 and 6. Hope you enjoyed.